we are very lucky to have Keenan here. I want you guys to use him as much as possible and ask any questions that you might have. I want you guys to get as much value from this discussion as possible. So please feel free to interject, put stuff in the chat. I'll ask him questions. So I've got a couple of questions for Keenan. I'm going to go through that, and then hopefully in the last 30 minutes, you guys can ask any questions that you want. I haven't prepped with Keenan for this interview, which will be interesting. And so the answers that you get are going to be like genuine, and I'm sure he's going to add a lot of value. So thanks to you guys for taking out the time. I know your time is valuable. So thanks for logging on and spending this hour with us this morning. So I'm probably going to, I could like literally spend like 5 minutes of this discussion going through Keenan's CV, but I am going to go through it just to provide context. So Keenan Horne graduated with a BCom from Stellenbosch in 2011 to 2014. He's got a Master's of Laws cum laude in Sports Law from Stellenbosch, which he did between 2018 and 2000. Keenan did his articles of clerkship. Guys, I think there's some interference there, so just mute yourselves. Keenan he was a candidate attorney in Durbanville at Mostert and Bosman from 2021 and 2022. And I think you're in Paris now, right? You're just at Mayor Brown in Paris. So he got admitted and he's joining us from Paris. Very exciting. Now that's just the legal career, right? Now let's get into hockey. So Keenan has been playing hockey for more than 8 years, I think. Yeah, so he's been playing hockey for more than 8 years. He started playing hockey in 2015. He's been vice captain and his captain South African hockey team more than 30 times. He's currently playing professional hockey in Paris. And he has played for South Africa at the Olympics, at the World Cup, at the Africa Cup of Nations, at the Commonwealth. And he's got more than 100 caps playing for South Africa. Amazing. Have I covered everything?
Yeah, when you say it like that, it sounds like quite a lot.
It is quite a lot. It is. Like when I was doing research for this discussion, I was just amazed by like how much you've been able to cram in so far. So I don't want to I'm not going to ask you like, what are your qualifications? Give us a bit of background, because anyone can like find that stuff out, and I've sort of covered most of that. The one thing, very impressive, like everyone is like in the chat, like it is a very impressive bio. So the one interesting thing I want to talk to you about is that you use, let me see here, you use the post-nominal letters OLY after your name. And I know that that designation is provided by the World Olympics Association. Can you tell us what OLY means?
Yeah, so in sporting terms, OLY is when you competed at the Olympic Games, which I was fortunate enough to do at Tokyo 2021. And it's basically equivalent to a PhD, MBA in the academic field. So OLY is meant to give recognition to athletes who perform at the Olympic Games. So that's why I use it.
Yeah, I was first of all, it was the first time coming across that designation, and it's not automatic, right, that you get the designation. It's not like you compete at the Olympics and you automatically get it. My understanding is that there's a process, so you have to apply for it, and then there's certain criteria that you have to meet.
Yeah, you have to apply through the World Olympic Association. And then they sort of grant you the right to use it, you know. Of course, it's not an exam or process that we complete in the academic field. So that's why you have to sort of apply to the association.
Okay. But I guess, I mean, getting to the Olympics is an achievement by itself. So there is not every athlete can get the denomination. And that's why I think it's amazing that you do have it. And I think a lot of people like me didn't know about it. And the fact that we're discussing it now, people will actually, you know, going forward, understand what it means. So it's amazing that you can use that denomination for your name. So sticking with hockey, right? I know that you have two brothers, Jordan and Hagen, and you guys grew up playing hockey, you grew up playing rugby, and you're also exposed to cricket. Why the choice of hockey? And before you answer, the reason I want to ask, the reason is because, right, it would at face value, people would probably pick cricket or rugby because you can make more money from it. Most people, you know, there's a lot of sponsorship. And so from a monetary point of view, it would make sense to go with cricket and rugby, but you chose hockey, even though you probably could have the skills to play hockey or, rugby or cricket. Why did you pick hockey?
That's an interesting one. You make it sound like I could have just walked into a national rugby or cricket team, but no, I did. You know, I was lucky enough to have two older brothers, and we used to play outside a lot, and we played all the sports as you mentioned. I actually thought I was gonna play rugby one day, to be honest with you. Being South African, you know, we all want to play rugby or cricket or soccer for the country. But when I was growing up, I ended up making the provincial hockey team first. And I didn't quite crack the nod for the rugby team for Western Province. So it's not that I gave up on rugby. It got to a stage, grade 8, grade 9, where I had to choose my winter sport. You know, I was still pushing for the cricket, of course, but the hockey is the one where I just excelled the most. And therefore, I sort of, with my parents' support, we put a lot of effort into that side of the sport. So I did still do a lot of cricket. I played zonally in the Western Cape, which I would love to have been a cricket player. But I think playing hockey, which is an amateur sport in South Africa, has given myself the opportunity to be more of a rounded person, because that has sort of not just let me focus on hockey as just a career, even though it is a career, but it has sort of forced me in a good way to look at myself outside of sport and who am I holistically, and not be defined by a sport, where I think sometimes you become a rugby player or cricketer and you are now a rugby player or cricketer. You're no longer Keenan Horne, you know. So I think playing amateur sport in South Africa and being able to also pursue my studies has made me a better person, I feel.
Okay, so hockey in South Africa is let me just get this right. So it's an amateur sport in South Africa, but now you're playing professionally in Paris. Is that correct?
So you just cut out there?
Yeah, so I was saying, so hockey in South Africa is an amateur sport, as you alluded to, but now you're playing professionally in Paris. Is that correct? Yeah, so overseas in Europe, we're very fortunate to get contracts to play over here, and that sort of improves our game. And that's sort of, as a South African hockey player, that's what you want to do. You know, you want to see the opportunities, try and do well in South Africa to sort of get the next step of playing in Europe, where it's more professional. Okay, great. And what opportunities has hockey opened up for you? Yeah, for one, the current occupation that I have, you know. Yes, so working, I can never talk about my hockey outside of my legal career, but in terms of my hockey, I mean, going to places like, or competing at the Commonwealth Games in Australia, as well as Birmingham last year and Tokyo Olympics, you meet so many different people, you know, and there's a lot of good people out there, and you don't often rub shoulders with those sort of people. And so the hockey has sort of opened my doors to opportunities in my legal career. You know, I was playing in Manchester in 2018, 2019, and I played in London before COVID hit. And I decided, with doing my articles, the next contract that I take overseas has to be coupled with them like pushing my career outside of my hockey, if that makes sense. So yeah, there was an opportunity to go to Germany this year to go play over there, but I chose Paris because there was an opportunity at a law firm in Paris, and they were like giving me the rein to sorry, to still compete with my hockey in Paris. So that sort of helped me, you know. Yeah, so yeah, it just opened doors for me legally and sporting wise. And that's such a great answer. And the reason I'm asking the question is, again, going back to the, you know, a lot of young people might choose cricket and rugby or other, more lucrative sports without identifying like the opportunities that are available if you play any sports at the highest level. And what's great or impressive about your career is that you've been able to, seize those opportunities and show people that there are opportunities within hockey. So it's really great. So the next, guys, can you guys please mute yourselves? Thank you, because there's interference. Okay, so the other thing I want to talk to you about again is balancing, right? So that was the whole reason why we have the crux of the discussion today. So, and I want to just base my question on, there's a commencement speech that Shonda Rhimes, Shonda Rhimes, she wrote Scandal.
Yeah.
She wrote Scandal. She's like an amazing Hollywood writer. And she did this commencement speech, and she talks about how, people always ask her, how does she balance being a mom and, being this hectic Hollywood writer? And she says, if you see me doing well in one aspect of my life, it means that I'm failing in another. And you obviously are balancing a lot of stuff. There's the hockey. I think you just you engaged, so you have a fiance. You're not like someone who doesn't have relationships outside of hockey. You seem to have a great relationship with your parents. You are like on a upward trajectory in terms of your legal career, and you're still playing hockey you're still playing hockey professionally. My question to you is, have there been instances where you have succeeded in one area of your life while failing in another, and how do you deal with that conflict? And I'm sure it's something that comes up often in your life. How do you deal with, succeeding in one area of your life and then failing in another? And how do the people in your inner circle also deal with that give and take?
Yeah, that's a very valid question. If I think deeply on it and I reflect on it, as you're talking, I was thinking, has that ever happened where I felt like I was failing in one area or the next? And I guess it's all relative to how you personally judge what failure means, if that makes sense. So I'm very aware that in every sphere of your life, there's an up phase for one, and there's a calm or down phase for another. And that doesn't mean failure. Okay, that just means it's the season for this area to be thriving. That's the way I look at it. Or the time is now for that. It's ripe for you to sort of progress in this area, and it's called sacrifice. That's all that it is. You can't get anywhere in life without sacrifice, and you need to be comfortable with sacrifice firstly. But in talking about failure, when I was at university, the first time that I felt that stumbling block is when I actually had to repeat one or two modules because I went away to play a couple of tournaments. And the modules were continuous assessment. I wasn't even aware of that. Yeah. Being an athlete at university, and you needed to be in this class to do this tutorial, and it was compulsory, and there was just no way that I could do it. But that's the first little bit of failure that I really felt. And I have quite high standards for myself. So to fail a module, it was like the first time I failed anything, it was a shock. And I vowed to not let that happen again. But in saying that, I attended Settlers High School in Belleville, and we were forced to play a sport, do a cultural activity, and perform academically. So I've always had multiple things on my plate. And I thought that is just how life is. I was that guy that I wanted to win the all-rounder award at school. I didn't want to win the sportsman of the year at the end of the year, because I'm doing all these things, I might as well be the best at it, and if you are going to do things, try and be the best at it. And again, there were moments in the last 2 years where it was quite tough because I had to study for my board exams. Before that, I was prepping for the Olympics. I remember when I was doing my articles, I had to wake up at 5 o'clock, go to gym at 5:30, go to work after that. Then I used to train in Athlone, which is about 45 minutes away from, or 40 minutes away from work, 45 minutes away from home. So I had to sleep in the parking lots in my car some Tuesday or Thursday evenings for an hour because I was so exhausted before going to training. So there was, people don't see that part of the sacrifice. But when you have a goal and a purpose and a why, you know, that's no longer a sacrifice. It's just what you have to do, you know, because your purpose trumps what you deem as sacrifice, if that makes sense. And then socially, yeah, there's again moments in your life where I know, coming back from tours, where I spend 2 to 3 weeks with 22 guys, and then I have to come home, and my brother wants to spend time with me, and my parents. And I just there used to be a time when I used to go into my room and close my door, you know. And then having a fiance or girlfriend, you're like, oh man, like, you know, this. But those people are there for you all the time, you know. So again, it's sometimes you realize it's not sacrifice, you know. It's realized it's your comfort, it's your home, and also, you know, you learn to manage your time. I don't know if I'm answering you. I'm just babbling.
You are answering, and your answers are great.
Yeah, but as I say, it's I'm so used to having multiple things on my plate. Like more recently now, so I'm playing for the club in Paris. Like I'm a month into my job here in Paris, and 2 weeks ago I applied for another master's in Madrid, and
how?
And I've gotten into be admitted out of 30 people for this master's in Madrid, and now I'm like, is that a lot to do? You know, is that too much? But I'm like, I'm used to running. You know, this is when you're young, you must run. You know, you don't have to settle now. You know, you keep running, keep improving, keep upskilling. And I guess that's what stagnation fears me, and I think that's what pushes me, you know.
Yeah, Robin is asking in the comments, do you ever sleep?
Yeah, it's crazy because over in Paris I train from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. That's the training times of the club, and then work sort of starts between 9:30 and 10 a.m. in the morning. So it's not too early. I had to adjust to that because in South Africa we're up at like 6:30, you know, getting ready for work. But yeah, now I've found an opportunity where like I try and maximize my sleep. Of course, my fiance has to wake up in the mornings to have coffee and breakfast with me, otherwise we don't see each other throughout the day. But yeah, so I love sleep. Every athlete loves sleep.
So I just want to unpack your answer there, and you touched on one very important point which I want us to go into detail on. You spoke about the fact that there's seasons, and that's why I really, really liked your answer. And a lot of people will struggle with juggling. And I always, obviously, I'm trying to identify with you. And for me, the juggling comes from being a lawyer and being a mom and then running MoLAWoo, right? And there's this fallacy that people, you know, you can have it all. I think people can have it all, but not at the same time. And that talks to the seasons, right? Like in certain seasons of your life, you're going to focus on certain things, and then the seasons change. And if you look at your life holistically, then you would have had it all, but you can't necessarily have it all at the same time. And you spoke about, you know, being on hockey tour for 2 weeks. During those 2 weeks, right, you're just doing hockey. And then when you go home, then you can have time for your family. And I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with, and that they will want to have everything all the time in balance. And I don't think there is such a thing as balance. And whether that is focusing on certain things for a couple of hours on the day, and then other hours of the day you focus on other stuff, or whether that is focusing on specific aspects of a life, like in terms of weekly chunks or even monthly chunks or even yearly chunks, right? So there's a chunk for like over 2 or 3 years where you focus specifically on one aspect, or there can be 2 or 3 weeks in the month where you focus on a specific aspect. So I think having seasons for everything, for me, I think is the one thing I want to take away from that answer. I think it's something that will be of value to everyone else, like on the call, and a piece of advice that everyone, I think, can practically take away. The fact that you shouldn't put so much pressure on yourself to achieve it all at the same time, and that, you know, you slice away specific stages of your life, whether it's specific times of the day or specific hours or specific like weeks or even months or even years of your life, to say, okay, during this designated time, I'm going to focus on this. And then when you take a bird's eye view of your life over a space of a year or even a lifetime, then you would have achieved everything. So I really, really love that answer.
I've learned not the hard way with that. In COVID, like all of us, we had a lot of time to reflect, and I sort of planned an NGO. I planned the company that I want to do one day, a non-profit company. And the year after COVID, I registered it, and I was going to be like, this is my baby. This is what I want to do with my life. Give back to the community, start a non-profit company, registered it and everything. But I just didn't have time, and it was frustrating me because I've just started my articles. I had to, train for the Olympics. I had to write my board exams the following year, which I ended up writing all 4 in one go because I just wanted to shorten my time. But my non-profit company is still just registered and dormant, and I haven't had a chance to run it out. And then after a year, I've just accepted that it's like, okay, the one season was planning. I'm still like, I don't have all the experience yet that I need to run this baby. And maybe I just need to still be in my process of working, running here on this side before I get back to that, where I can give more of myself to it. So I've had experience in it, and I had to readjust my mindset as well. Because sometimes you forget, sometimes you just think you can go. But it's like, if you have time to self-reflect, it's the most important thing.
100%. And your season for your nonprofit is coming. The season for it.
I hope so. I'll make sure it does.
Yeah. Guys, please, can you mute yourselves, because I'm getting a bit of interference, and I really want to unpack some of the issues that Keenan is touching on. So I'd really appreciate it if you guys could mute yourselves. I think it's Penny's interference is coming through. Would you mind just putting yourself on mute? Thank you so much. Okay, so you've already touched on this, right? And I want to talk to you about your experience with your board exams. So you studied for your board exams while playing the Africa Cup of Nations, and you also played like pro leagues against the Netherlands, India, and Germany during that time. What are the practical things that you did in order to make sure that you had time to be like at the Africa Cup of Nations and then like studying for your board exams?
Yeah, it's sometimes I think I'm crazy that I did that. But so my first year of my articles, I didn't write any of the exams. And then the year after, after the August exams, I decided I'm writing all 4, because there was a part of me that knew that I needed to shorten my articles because there was big opportunities that are coming. The big opportunities was coming to work in Paris. So I knew for me to go overseas and pursue a career overseas for a little bit, I needed to put things in place. So I needed to be active, even though the offer might not have been there yet. I decided to enroll to UNISA's online law school to shorten my articles, and do the board exams. And I ended up starting in December of the previous year for the March exams. And if anyone is doing the articles, they know that December is the quietest month in the office, because a lot of the partners go away for holiday from the 16th of December while you have to sit there. And there's really minimal work to do. And I've just slowly started unpacking like what every exam is about, and then deciding what is the most challenging paper. I sort of drew out a timeline for myself, and I said paper 1, court procedure. That's the one everyone struggles with. December, I'm just going to read through all the notes that I have. And literally, it was just familiarizing myself with the content. January came, I started reading through the next batch of notes for the next exam. And that's how I went about it until about 3 or 4 weeks before the March exams. And even on tour, again, you have to surround yourself with the right sort of people, because, we're in Ghana, we're at a nice hotel, there's a pool, you know, we went to the beach one day. You need to pick your moments, and you need to think what's more important for you, you know, waking up, lying in the sun for 2 hours and reading a book at the pool, or for those 2 hours of your life, or studying here for 2 hours, maximizing your future. And to me, it's sort of become a no-brainer that you have to be selfish, you know, to achieve what you want at times. You know, I don't mean selfish as in take everything for yourself, but I mean selfish with your time. You know, the people that succeed in life know how to be selfish with their time. And you have to ask yourself, are you spending those 2 hours at the pool with your mates because it's fun for them and for you, you don't want to miss out, you know, or, you know, are you going to sacrifice those 2 hours of, you know, investing in your future? You know, time is actually an investment for us. We don't realize it now because we live in an era where everything has to happen like this and like that and like that, and we don't understand the currency of time, you know. So it was difficult, you know, and then things just align for you. You know, there's moments where you realize things align for you. When we played in Potchefstroom against the Netherlands, Germany, and India, I ended up rooming alone because my roommate was sick. He contracted COVID, so he couldn't come to tour, you know. So I ended up rooming alone, and therefore I had all this time in my room to study, you know. So but you know, you have to take the first steps for things to align. So my first steps were enrolling for all 4 exams, taking all my books to Potchefstroom to know that I'm going to study, and then everything else falls into place after that. But it wouldn't have happened if I thought to myself, it's going to be 2 weeks of just hockey. I won't be able, and I didn't take my books with me, you know, then I wouldn't have had that opportunity. So you have to be proactive with what you want. And the problem is we sometimes don't see the path. So we don't want to take the step. You know, the path seems too far for us. Okay, but you must realize that every step by step the path reveals itself to you of where you need to go. But you need to be proactive by taking the steps. And it's by no means easy, but as I said, when you have a purpose, it becomes easier, you know. And that's the main thing is having a purpose, knowing your why you're doing what you're doing. I knew my why of writing all 4 exams. It was to shorten my articles. It was to make myself available for an overseas opportunity. So yeah.
That's resonating with a lot of people in the group and in the chat. I'm just manning the chat now, and they totally agree with you on being selfish with your time, and I really like that. And what I also liked was, you know, planning for stuff. I like the saying that if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. And so if you don't chart your own path and actually put plans in place for the things that you want to achieve, then you won't achieve them. And I know that, you know, the constant theme for today so far has been, you know, where do you find the time? And I just want to let the other mentees know, you know, or highlight the fact that Keenan has the same 24 hours that we all do, right? No one is given more time. We all have the same 24 hours. And it depends on you and how you're going to utilize that time. And then another thing that you touched on, which I really liked, is emphasizing the fact that your time is precious, right? And you should use it wisely. And I like and I was watching some YouTube channel, some YouTube video. And this person is talking about how, you know, if everyone was given like 24,000 Rand every day, and they said to you, you know, spend this 24,000 Rand, which is the equivalent of, let's say, the hours that you get. And at the end of the day, you know, your bank account goes back to 0. you would think very carefully every day about how you spend the 24,000 rand. You wouldn't just, throw it down the drain, which is what you do when, you're watching Netflix or, chilling and not doing anything constructive. You're like throwing away a finite resource. And I do watch Netflix. I'm not saying people don't, but I'm just saying holistically, I think, and I'm also in a season now where I'm focusing a lot on my time, and my time is precious. Because it's going to go back to zero at the end of the day, and then you start again with your 24 hours, and your next 24 hours is not guaranteed, right? So you definitely need to be maximizing the amount of time. I love the planning focus. I love the fact that you prioritize your time, and that's the only way that you can achieve the things that you've achieved so far. So thank you so much for that, Keenan. I think for everyone, it really is resonating with everyone. And Penny here says, wow, step by step, the path reveals itself. The process can be daunting when you're just hitting hard walls. Powerful, sir. And I agree with her. I agree with Penny. Yeah. Okay, so we've touched on your board exams, right? So the other thing now I want to talk to you about, and this is a concept I often talk to my mentees about, the concept of skill stacking. And skill stacking, and especially within the legal context, and skill stacking is where, I always say as a lawyer, you need basic legal knowledge, and most lawyers will have basic legal knowledge. But on top of that, you then need to stack very unique skills that are unique to you, that you can then use and deploy in an interesting and different manner. And I know that you can get different skills from different, things that you do, or different paths. And the question for me to you is, what skills do you think you have taken from hockey that you can translate into your legal career?
That's a very good question. If you look at sport and competing, and just when you're a child playing informal sport, you learn a lot of things. You learn resilience, you learn teamwork, you build confidence, build self-esteem, you learn how to set goals for yourself, but you also become self-reflective, because you're not always the best in a team that you play in. You're not always going to be the one that's achieving in a game, even though that you don't feel, but you are part of the importance of a team. They can't do it without you, even though in the moment you don't feel that. And there's a lot of things that I've taken over to my legal career. Those that are doing the articles will realize that when you get your right of appearance to appear in the magistrate courts, I felt the most comfortable in there. I enjoyed it thoroughly. But that's just because of my experience in my sport. I've kept in the country. I've done a lot of interviews. I was on the media a lot, so I felt comfortable in that area. But that's an extreme example. But then coming into my articles, we were 4 that started together, and I felt very much 4 people or 3 people competing with what could be one spot available at the firm. But I didn't feel that way. I was competing, because for me it was like, the 4 of us are starting together, we have each other, we're a team, so I was like working in a team mindset, where others were like, we're a team, but we're competing for this one spot, and I was able to handle that a lot better, while still maintaining my integrity. You guys will see in your workspace environments, there's going to be people that want to throw you under the bus or point out any little thing that you do wrong, and that's just how the working world is. People are trying to climb a ladder, and to your dismay, and I was comfortable with who I was, because I knew that I didn't just identify myself as a candidate attorney. I was Keenan Horne. That's who I am first. And I've been on, like, another extreme example, I've been on TV making mistakes on a hockey field, being shouted at by my coach. So when my principal had to reprimand me about something, I was okay because I've made mistakes in the past. I didn't die, and I knew that I can just be better and learn from it for the next time. So yeah, as I say, with sports, you make mistakes, you become resilient, you become more determined. And that is something that I made sure that was pretty evident in the workplace. And as I say, I'm a very self-reflective person, and I don't compare myself to my peers that much, because I know I'm on my own path and my skills will reveal themselves at the right time. But you just need to be comfortable with that within who you are, you are growing. And the worst thing that you can do, someone once told me, is compare yourself to someone else, because someone always has something you don't have. Okay, compare yourself to the person you were yesterday. That's the only thing you should think about. What 5%, someone once said 1% every day is 100% after 100 days. Now imagine that. So, and it's hard, it's hard. It sounds so easy for me to say, but you're always looking next to you at this person, that person. Maybe the boss is using that person more often than you, and you question why. But you just need to know that your season or your time is coming. You need to think about, I'm in the situation. How am I learning from where I am right now, so that I'm ready for when I need to take that next step? And yeah, so that, I think that's the skills that sport has given me is a form of being content and self-improvement. I think that's the most important thing, self-improvement as opposed to comparison improvement.
I love that
to
so
someone
much.
else's standard.
100%. I love that so much. And everyone in the chat is like agreeing with you. Mfundo says, we're a team, and she like really, really loves that. And the other thing that definitely came through, and which people are liking in the chat, is your focus on integrity. But I think the teamwork aspect is key. And I love the fact that you've opened up the conversation about that, because that's also something else I often talk to the mentees about. The fact that especially as a junior lawyer, it's such a difficult stage of your life that you actually need the other people who are in the trenches with you to support you, because you can't survive by yourself, because you might have a deadline that you can't meet and people will like huddle and help you out. And if you build that camaraderie from the get-go and realize that we're all on the same team, then you guys can help each other out. And I 100% also love the fact that those skills you've transferred from sport onto your legal career. And from where I'm sitting, I also think the fact that you're able to deal with authority, right? In as much as you gained leadership skills by captaining the team, but you also learned to work within a system and follow rules and follow authority, follow your coaches. And sometimes a lot of people struggle with that, right? They struggle with being boxed in and working within the system of, this is a law firm, this is the hierarchy. These are the people that you should, listen to. And so I think also being able to lead, but also be led, is a skill that you definitely have translated very well from playing professional sports to legal practice.
Yeah, one of the things that was so funny when I started out my articles is that one or two of all the partners at the firm knew I was a national sportsman, and there's some tedious jobs that you have to do as a candidate attorney, which is collecting the boss's lunch every day. There's a roster for that. Packing the bar fridge, fetching boxes downstairs in the storeroom. And I understand that I'm the bottom of the bottom. I've never had an issue. If anything, I'm like, I understand this, a lot of people complain about it. But I'm like, this is where you start. This is where you learn, in a new environment, you have to earn your stripes. And I remember a lot of the candidates were out the office one day, and the one boss needed some de-alcoholized wine. He doesn't drink alcohol, so he drinks non-alcoholic wine with his lunch. And he looked around the office, all the candidates were out, and he's like, sure, I hate to ask this, because his sons played hockey, so he knew who I was. And he's like, can I ask you to just go buy me, this non-alcoholic wine? He felt so bad. And I'm like, well, this is part of my job. you know, like I don't mind, like don't feel bad, because this is what being a candidate is. We do all these tedious things in between gaining our legal knowledge, you know, we're the runners of the firm. But he felt so bad, and I was like, this it's not necessary, you know. Which I found really, really funny, because sometimes people will expect you to act in a certain way, you know, but yeah, you don't have to. Don't take advantage of that. Just do what you can for the team, I think.
That's so true. And I think, you know, being humble is a skill. Not everyone has it. So, and that's why I call it a skill. I think being humble will really take you far in life. And I mean, Nomfundo again in the chat is agreeing with me, and she's saying, you know, humility is how we learn and grow. No job is below you. And I 100% agree with you, Nomfundo. And as Keenan has alluded to, you know, humility is so important, because it will really, really, you know, get you far in life. And I think it's a skill that everyone needs to learn. So thank you so much, Keenan, for sharing that with us. There are a couple of questions that have come through on the chat, and I'm just taking notes, and then I'll ask Keenan at the end about your questions. I just want to go through like 2 or more questions so that I can get a bit more value from you guys from Keenan while we still have him on. And this is also, again, something that you alluded to, right? And you spoke about, you know, your coaches, and I know that you do have a fiance, and some people have asked about the juggling of the different relationships. So, you know, there's an African proverb that says that it takes a village to raise a child. And what that means is, you know, it's not just 2 parents who are involved in making someone successful. There's usually like, and I call this the fire brigade, right? Like the people who come to your house when it's burning. And you have a few of those people, and everyone has those people who have supported you to get to where you are. Who has been your village, and who are the people who've supported you through your hockey and through your legal career?
Sure. There's you know, from a real family support, my family has been incredible. My mom and my dad, firstly, from growing up, when I think about having a child right now, and I think about the sacrifice that my parents made, I think, how the hell did they do that? You know, like from young, you as a parent are taking your kid to swimming lessons, to art class, to music class, to sport, to picking them up late. It seems like a lot. And the older you get, the more you realize, like, how on earth did they just sacrifice so much of themselves? So yeah, firstly, my parents were always there for me. They've also pushed my academics, and they realized that I wanted to do both. So I allowed them to support me in the right way, if that makes sense. Because, you know, coming from our background, education was our freedom, you know, and that's why it's important for us to be educated, you know. And then on the other hand, surrounding yourself with the right people. I've always had, well, firstly, my fiance is like been incredible, because sometimes I feel like I can't reciprocate what she does, if that makes sense. Like just giving off so much of her time. Even sometimes when I come off the field or I have a match, like tomorrow or something, I'll ask her to massage me for an hour, you know, and she'll do it, you know, because I'm so sore or whatever. But yeah, and like, so there's always been people there supporting me. I think in terms of mentors, one thing I've horribly failed at, I feel, is having a consistent, or being able to lean on a mentor enough. You know, reason why I say that is because I've treaded a path that my family hasn't. A lot of my family, they went into education, teachers, principals, education department, all those sort of things. Where I went the law route, I did the sport route, and I felt like they were my closest confidants, but they couldn't understand what I was going through. And therefore I've created this thing of like, I rely on myself to do the right thing, you know. And the older I got, the more people I've spoken to, and there's been incredible people I've crossed. And again, it's seasonal, in terms of the people that mentor you through different areas of your life, you know. And I felt like I could have had people earlier, but I think I've turned out all right. But there's still people that I'm able to lean on now, even just from a religious point of view. One of our sports mentors that helped our team during COVID with team management and, you know, just the whole sports psychology part. He used to be a pastor and a mentor for the Springboks back in 2004 in Jake White's era. And he's just someone who's like if I need prayer or something, or he will send me a verse, or he will check in with me. And sometimes he'll check in and I would hate it because like, I don't have time, you know, I can't chat for 10 minutes to someone. But he's just, I think those who become mentors are so selfless with their time, that, you know, they're always checking in, and that's what people like me need. You know, like I don't have one specific, I have a few people that I can chat to, but in terms of hockey wise, one of my coaches in my local clubs, I can always lean on him if I need support. And then off the field, generally, like my dad, I'll lean on him a lot. And just he has a lot of wisdom, you know. But sometimes when it's your parents, it feels like they're lecturing you. So it's always cautious but you must understand where it comes from area of love, you know, not like, you must distinguish between fear and love. Some people share it out of fear and some people share out of love, and you will learn to discern between the two. But yeah, as I say, I think I didn't have enough people for enough areas of my life. But in saying that, I'm connecting more and more, trying to keep people's values are the same as mine, who's been through a lot more, closer to me, if that makes sense.
It really does make sense. And what I want to zone in on in your response is, you know, you spoke about how no one in your family was really lawyers. They'd followed a different route, and now you were navigating, you've been navigating being a lawyer by yourself, essentially, because you don't have those family connections. And I think a lot of the mentees can resonate with that, because a lot of them are like the first lawyers in the family. Some of them are even the first people to graduate within their families. And it was the same thing for me. I was the first lawyer to graduate in my family. And that mentorship early on is so important. And you're 100% right when you say, you know, that is something that you didn't have. And I know that if you get mentorship and guidance within the legal profession, it really, really will help you. And that's part of the reason why I actually started the mentorship group, because when I was starting out, I didn't have any of that. I didn't have the connections. I didn't have anyone I could talk to. And so the platform is precisely set up for that, so that, you know, the little that I do know, I'm able to give back. And then I can get people to come in who've got a different perspective and also give value, because I don't have all the answers, right? And a lot of people think, oh no, because I'm starting out in my career, I might not be able to add value. And you can, right? Because all of your different life experiences, you know, you can lump those together and be able to provide value from someone. And so that's why having people like you on this platform is amazing, because you're coming from a different perspective. And yes, you know, you've been like only just started now as an associate and just finished your articles, but you have so much worldly experience that you can share. And I'm sure everyone is getting value from that. So 100% agree with you on the value of mentorship and leaning on different people. And it's great that your village has been so supportive. And that's really, really amazing. So we have probably 15 minutes to go, and I know people have got burning questions. I have been taking down notes. So the first question, I think, was from Robin, and she was asking, you know, the difference between qualifying in South Africa and qualifying in Paris. Have you had to take any like conversion exams, and how does that work with, you know, being South African qualified and then getting to practice law in Paris or in France?
I guess so. The department that I'm in Paris is international arbitration. So there's not really one jurisdiction that governs the law. So it's more about international treaties. So therefore, that's how I'm allowed to work in this division. But to be a full Parisian lawyer, I would have to write the bar exams in French. So I'm learning French. so
on top of everything you're doing, you're learning French. And then,
so the classes luckily only start next week, Tuesday, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But Yeah, so I don't have to do the conversion just yet. It's something that I would explore in the future, just to be, you know, if I'm going to be here for a while, I want to be able to participate in a lot more things. But as I say, I'm fortunate that it's international arbitration. So you know, like the firm represents states and investor claims. So you're representing the Republic of India against a company, or you're going against Morocco or things like that. Crazy things that I never thought existed when I was in South Africa.
Yeah.
So I'm learning as I'm going.
Sure. And it was, I also, you know, just to add on that, it was the same thing for me. So I practiced law in New York in the States.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to write the conversion exams because it was a finance law. So I think you normally like have to do the conversion if you're like gonna go to court and you like focus on local laws a lot. So I also can resonate with that, and I had a similar experience. So the next question is for Mantibile. She's asking, is the security in being an international sports player, seeing once, you know, you have an injury and don't recover, most sports players seem like they don't venture into other things other than, you know, the entertainment industry or broadcasting. So is there financial security in just focusing on international sports?
Yeah, that's partly why I say I'm very lucky I didn't just, because those are more lucrative in South Africa, where you are full-time just doing that, where so no, there's security, but we're getting to a stage where people are becoming more and more aware of themselves, you know, because where these are the first crop of athletes who are now earning money to play, doing all these things, where they just splurge their money, bought all their family members' cars and all these things, and you're one injury away from things just falling apart. But fortunately, there are now mentors in place in sport, you know, with guys that have been to the block who are assisting on how to manage their finances. Do whether they go through it, as I'm not sure about, if they you know, complete their studies, but it is something that is spoken about a lot more in the sports world. Yeah, and then again, there's a lot of opportunities over. I mean, I was at a rugby match of Stade Français or 6L. One guy has been here for 8 years already, playing around France, and I've never heard of him in my life, but he's huge life here. 2 weeks ago, he called me up on a financial dispute.
Yeah, sorry, you're breaking up a little bit. I don't know if it's my computer. I'm gonna walk around.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so there is some financial stability, but I think, you know, you becoming a lawyer is a way of you hedging, sort of hedging your bets in terms of not just relying on sport, but also like focusing on, I'm gonna move around, you focusing on your law degree. It's sort of like an insurance policy, I guess.
I wouldn't look at it as an insurance policy. It's more of like, I believe like it's part of what my greater goal is to achieve one day, you know. I don't know if I'm going to be practicing law till I'm 40, 50 or 60. But I know what I'm doing now is going to assist me to achieve what I want to achieve maybe one day.
Yeah. And I think someone else also asked around, you know, the fact that why do you think other sports people don't, you know, focus on the academics in conjunction with pursuing sport? Or is it just maybe the amount of time required for both, especially like for dominant sports like cricket or rugby in South Africa?
Sorry, I missed that first part. Why don't more sports people?
So the other question was, why do you think other, you know, professional sports players don't also pursue the academic route?
Okay. Yeah, because, you know, sporting mold in the beginning, you start earning money and it's great to study. I mean, let's studying, you know. Some people enjoy it. You know, there's university, those that are going to get their degree and know exactly what they want to do, those that get a degree and still unsure what they want to do, but they take the next job available because they have to start working, and those that just float and end up not finishing their degree, different sort of, and because that's where the world is going now. Some people don't even have qualifications for what they're doing, and again, it comes from that comparison of some, like us that study law, we know we're going to get our law degree, we're going to do our articles, and then we're either going to go into corporate or practice as attorneys, you know. Where athletes are like, play sport. If you look at the varsity players, they just enrolled to a course to play rugby, so their intentions is immediately to play rugby. It's not to pursue academic commitments, because they're young, they don't see the value of it just yet, and that's why there are so many initiatives like the Varsity Cup to force them to study. But unfortunately, they take contracts up before they can even finish their studies. So yeah, let's hope they learn and, you know, they pursue their studies online, or there's enough opportunities.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for those insights. And then just one more question from everyone. I know there's a lot of questions and everyone is very excited about some of the stuff that you've been saying. But there's just one question around mental health, and someone is asking, you know, how do you manage your mental health in juggling all of these things and having all of this pressure? And I know, and it's come through from my research, that you actually are quite religious, and I don't know whether that you know, your spiritual well-being assists with your mental health or not. But the question essentially is, you know, how do you maintain your mental health?
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. Is like just having a relationship with my God is so important to me. And I feel when I'm over busy and I'm not spending time, and that can be different things. That can be listening to just gospel music, just praying, or just reading the Bible, or reading devotionals. All those things help, you know, because that's quite a big thing. Like I've been very fortunate to grow up having a relationship with God, and having to separate a lot of the things that I'm doing with who I am, you know. And that's important, because some things you're doing and other things is you have to separate from who you are, you know. And that's why I speak about your identity a lot more often, because if you have that relationship, you know, first of all, that you are a child of God, you are a human being, you know, you are on this earth not just to work and slave away. And when you put things into perspective, it just helps for calmness and centering you again. Because there's times when I want to come home and flip and cry in the shower or something, because like there were times like over the last 2 years that it was so damn demanding. But now when I take the metro to work, I just put my earphones in, listen to some gospel music, you know, and it's one thing just listening to it, but I listen to the verses and the words in there, because a lot of the times those words are taken from scripture. So it reinforces who you are. And, you know, just because we're on the last question, I saw a lot of quotes in the chat, and, you know, things like, you can bend, can never be broken, you know. Are we writing those things down, you know? Are you looking at it every day? Because there's every single day there's things, there's going to be hiccups, there's going to be speed bumps in your daily walk, daily. I'm talking about, you could have the greatest cup of coffee at 9 o'clock, opposite 9 something bad could have happened. How are you reacting to that? Is that quote that you are living by assisting you, you know? And again, I have to take it back to this thing that where I applied for the masters. It's the cost of the masters is 15,000 euros, and I said I don't have that money, I can't do it. And the scholarship committee granted us like a 10,000 euro scholarship. So now we only have to pay 5,000 over a period of time. But I was reading this book with some scriptures, and it's like one verse in Matthew was saying like, God is my provider. And the very next day, or that evening, I came home and like, why am I stressing when like, this is what I want to do. I know God, this is another test of faith. You get tested in various areas. You get tested in leadership in one season. You get tested in your studies in the next season. You get tested in your relationships the next. And you have to discern again where you're being tested. I mean, the last 2 years, I was tested in my leadership within my team, with the national team, and it was horrible. I didn't want to be a leader anymore. But without that test, how are you going to grow? You can't just be the same everywhere. And I prayed about this thing, and I said, like, God, that's your word in Matthew, that you are my provider. Like, you've made me apply for this thing. I feel I've gotten admitted into the program. Like, why did I get admitted if I need to pay that amount of money? And then all of a sudden, got to work yesterday, and the one partner said, we'll speak to the firm about how we can manage and support you doing this program.
Amazing.
So that's what I say, like, I see you guys writing these quotes, and it's very good having these quotes, but are these the quotes that are going to help us in every single speed bump? We have to live by it. We shouldn't just, words are powerful, there's life and death in the power of the tongue. So you have to talk the good things over you. And it's so easy for us to always look at the negative, because we don't realize what good is, because our vision of good is now tainted by society, where it's being rich. Being good is working from home, or being good is this and this and that. But good is being able to wake up every day, to see your loved ones, to walk in the streets and be safe, be alive. There's good in everything, and we mustn't let one bad deter us. And that's why I say, what are the quotes or verses or scripture or things are we living to that is helping us every single day? And is it speaking about who we are as human beings first? Because you are a human being first, and that's important. That's why when you grab those quotes, when you stick them on your wall, or I write it on sticky notes in the office, and I just stick it on my desk, like this scripture or this verse that because I know, like, if something's happening and I sit down back at my desk, there's that scripture. I can't hide from it, because I decided to write that down, and I decided that's part of my identity. So yeah. Sorry, I don't know if I answered your question.
You have. you definitely have, and I don't want to stop you, because what you're saying is just so inspirational. It's inspirational to me. I think I've learned so much from you during this interview. You've definitely inspired me. I've learned, like, at a practical level, like some of the things that you have done, I'm definitely going to use, but also at an inspirational level. So thank you so much for that. I know that you guys have more questions, but we're already over time. So I'm going to call it quits now. Umakatule has actually given a very good takeaway. He summarized it in the quotes, and he says his takeaway is respect your time and the time of others, sacrifice plans or projects are not failure, and surround yourself with a solid team or support structure. And he says, I also have a new mantra: 1% a day is 100% in 100 days. I love it. And then also the one other thing which I really loved, you said there's life and death in the power of the tongue. So be careful about the stories that you tell yourself about yourself, and be careful of the words that you put out there about yourself and your thoughts as well. So I totally think that is an amazing place to end off on. Keenan, thank you so much for doing this interview. Thank you for—
Sorry, Rory, I have to answer one question of
Okay, there's one question.
This is a very important one, because it's about what privileges have you had in your life that have contributed to you being where you are. And that's very important, because all of us have different backgrounds. Not all of us have had the same sort of footholds or springboards to succeed. And I'm very fortunate, because my parents were the first ones to study, to sacrifice, to give me the opportunities, and very aware of that. I'm the sort of the first generation that can pursue all my dreams, and that's why I'm running. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's not for greed or for whatever, because I know there's people that haven't had the opportunity. And sometimes you hate it, but you have to be the catalyst in your family. You have to be the first of your generation. And it's hard because what the teachers that you dig is for your generation. So you can decide to pick up that mantle or that flame and be the first of your generation, that the generations to come in your family can have something to aspire to, someone to look up to, because I've had that. So I know where all of what I have is coming from. It's from the sacrifices that my family went through. Like your families couldn't go to the best universities, couldn't study everything they wanted. And that is why I'm trying to take every opportunity that I can, because we can say a lot of these things, like a lot of people are more privileged than us, but sometimes when we're given things, we try to exploit it, in terms of there's a lot of people that get degrees, get into good jobs, but then they're drinking every single weekend. They're not putting money away or using it wisely. And these are just things that we need to be aware of what type of people do we want to be. And that's what I think that comes back to who you are and your identity and everything you have. And you can still be a good person with less than someone else. So don't compare yourself. You're on your own journey.
I love that so much. Like I literally loved everything that you said today. And I think this is actually a very good note. I keep saying this is a good note to end off on, but I think this is like such a special thing to focus on. And I know that sometimes people will use that as a crutch, right? To say, oh no, so-and-so is succeeding because, they had this and that privilege. And I love your story because there's no crutch, right? You've had to like go out there and hustle essentially to get the things that you've wanted. There hasn't been, all of this historical or generational privilege that has been bestowed on you. And I love your story for that. And that's why I think a lot of people will resonate with it or be inspired by it, because you could be any one of the mentees on this group, right? There hasn't been sort of a generational benefit that you've gotten. And that's why I'm really, really inspired by your story. And just to end off on that point, I also always say for every generation, there's an invoice for success that has to be paid, right? And unfortunately, if the invoice lands up on your lap from a generational perspective and it's saying due and payable, someone's got to pay the bill. And you can moan and be like, oh no, white people have had the bill paid for them by generations. And then you're hating on this generation because their ancestors paid the bill. Unfortunately, you can whine and cry and moan as much as you want, but someone's got to pay the bill. And the bill is saying due and payable. And you need to ask yourself, are you going to then pass on that invoice to the next generation, still saying due and payable? And so I want to close off on that point, and I want you guys to just have that key takeaway and think about, how you're spending your time. As Keenan has said, your time is precious, so use it wisely. There's life and death in the power of the tongue. So keep that in mind and just think about whether you're paying the invoice or whether you're going to pass it on to the next generation. Thank you, everyone. That has been amazing. Thank you so much, Keenan. As I said, I'm going to put this up on my YouTube channel. Thanks, everyone, for taking the time out. And I literally have been so inspired by this interview, and I really enjoyed my time. So thanks.
No, thanks for having me, guys. And thanks for listening and being a part of my journey and the incredible questions you asked. You challenged me. Sometimes I asked Rory not to post any questions because I wanted to be as authentic as possible when she asks. I've never seen the questions, and I hope I was able to do that and just share a little bit with you guys. Okay, and good luck for the future endeavors.
Thank you so much, Keenan. Cheers. Bye,
Cheers,
everyone.
Guys.